PG Department of Social Work Self-Financing at Madras School of Social Work. And today we are going to deal about one of the interesting topics which has been spoken by many of us, especially during the rise in the pandemic. The self-care is something which has become very important. And I'm really delighted that our department is organizing a workshop on this. And probably when you look into the flow of the workshop, so it has been scheduled for 6 days. And today I'll be doing the introduction to self-care. So I'll be introducing the key variables related to self-care, do's and don'ts about self-care, and aspects related to self-care. And tomorrow's session is exclusively on dimensions. When you look at dimensions, there are 6 spillover dimensions of self-care that's been dealt by Professor Jasmine from our department. And the next day's session is going to be on the self-esteem, building self-esteem, and different coping strategies related to all those are added variables to self-care. That will be dealt by Dr. Rachel. And the 4th day session is going to be on resilience and hope. All those are positive psychological variable, how they contribute to the well-being and taking care of self. That will be dealt by me again. And the 5th day session is going to be on related to optimism and mindfulness. So all those are again a key variable that will be again dealt by Dr. Rachel. And the last session is going to be on happiness, which will be dealt by one of our professor. So these are all the key variables which are related to self-care. Now, without much delay, I'm going to my topic, self-care. So when you think about self-care, the word seems to be very, very light, and because it has been used in our daily life. And when I do this workshop on similar places and different places, one thing people keep asking me, self-care is very routine. We do everybody do it. What is a big deal about a session on self-care? No, and probably when you undergo the session, you will realize, how much of we are not aware about ourselves. Self-care is something, and you look into the definition of it. The Collins definition talks about in 2012, self-care is a practice of taking action to preserve or improve one's own health. In fact, in Collins, he highlights one of the very interesting statement. He says about, conscious decision made by an individual to take care of ourselves. This is where self-care differs from other things. Everybody take care of themselves. When we feel hungry, we go eat. When we feel sleep, we sleep. When we want to take time to do it, how conscious are we? How mindful are we doing it? That's where the concept of self-care comes in. So self-care is a procedural time taken by yourself to take care of yourself. So which is a lot of consciousness and mindfulness is involved in how you take care of yourself. And again, in the Stromberg definition, that's very pretty interesting. Talks about self-care. It refers to the activities and practices that we can engage in on a regular basis to reduce stress and to maintain and enhance well-being. So this is about the definition. So when you look into that, what this self-care can do to people, it's one of the essential survival skill, and it is fundamental for everyone. And the people should not think that self-care is only for people who are feeling sick, only for people who have disease or people who have ill health. No, self-care is for everybody else. So it is part of a self-regulation. So how does it regulate? It helps in balance between both physical, mental process, through which we create a strong mental balance between our inner and the outer balance. So when we talk about self-care, the concept of self-care, it differs from people to people. It is not the same self-care. For what is self-care to me need not be the same to you. So we have around 40 plus participants here. So it is look at that, what is the same self-care strategy? What I say will not be the same for you. So each one of us, we will have our own strategy. That's what it talks about, the self-care time, taken by individuals is different. But on the fundamental note, when you look at, it is the practice of self-care means, taking care of yourself. How much you take care of your time spent to take care of your physical health, mental and emotional. So it is about the process of, it's just an intention how you do it. And again, self-care strategies differ from person to person. I would like to give you an example. So let's talk about the reflective time on me time. Say for instance, there are a few category of people, when they wanted to reflect on a good memory, or they have some bad memories or something that has affected them, a crisis. Let's say they have a crisis. Some have their me time, sitting writing like a journal, or spending their own time individually reflecting on what went on wrong, what should have done, what they could have done it much better, or what is the rationale behind doing it. They want to have their own personal time to reflecting about the situation. For someone, when they have an issues or crisis, they wanted to call up one or two, three people whom they loved ones, or somebody whom they think that, they're good in sharing, or they have a good trust, they call up themselves. So in one particular group, you see that there is so much of inward reflection. There is so much of reflection time that they take for self. In other sector, you see that they wanted to express out their emotion. They express out. So here, one someone want to reflect on their emotion, someone want to express their emotion. So this differs from people to people. Both are doing their self-care strategy because they don't wanted to keep it themselves. Somebody wants to reflect on what went on wrong so that in future they can avoid certain things. Somebody want to share it to others so that the burden comes down. So the self-care, the time taken by the self, the individual things, differs from person to person. And when you ask us, why self-care, especially, and I believe when you're looking into the registration, most of us, 90% of the people who have registered for this workshop are from social work background or serving profession. So when we are in the caring profession, okay, so we are overloaded with emotions and negative situation. Let's say, for instance, a person who is working in a hospital as a medical social worker, most of the time when you look at, the situation that you're working with, it's always situations related to sadness or burnout, stigma, a lot of disease, sickness. Much of our emotions that what we are dealing is not very pleasant. It's not very happy about it. But that's what our calling is. Social workers, we work in relation to the problems, deal with them, bring them a solution, elevate them, try to elevate. That's how. So when you work with these situations throughout, it is not our one day job. It is not like, a task is given, you finish the task and you move forward. It's like your routine. Every day you have to meet with the same situations. So we are overloaded with emotions. Much of the time, sometimes it can be the negative situation. Sometimes, you feel overburdened. And when you look into that, people in caring profession often neglect our own well-being because we constantly deal with all those problems. And I keep telling this to people, especially the counselors are like a doormats. When people come into it, they pour out all this emotion and they are free. Especially when you're working in a settings like counseling, if it's a group counseling, one person comes, share the problem and leave, other person comes. So the person, when they pour out all these problems, we call it as catharsis. When they leave out all this emotion, they are free and they are relaxed. But as a counselor, as a social worker, you feel overburdened when you don't know how to channelize your emotions, when you don't know how to take care of yourself. One way or one point we can be emotionally burned out. So there's something called no, the compassion itself, overdrained. We feel a compassion fatigue comes to us in one point of time. So it's very important for us to take care of ourselves. There's something called, there's a myth. People say think that, self-care is only for people who have been sick. Okay, so that's how we, we tell ourselves, I'm a social worker, I'm a counselor, so I think I should be able to handle the problem. Let's break the myth. Self-care is for everyone. Has, when you don't know that, everyone has got mental health. So self-care is not only for people who struggle with mental illness, so it's for everyone. So it's very important for us to note. And when you look at, there's another thing that comes to my mind. It is important that we take time to do for our self well-being. When we are not, taking care of ourselves, who else you expect to take care of ourselves? That's very important. In order to, for us to give the best to others, we need to give best to ourselves. That is one of the important things. And this picture will give you a clear understanding of it. Let's say opposite to self-care, which means people doesn't take care of themselves. There is no self-regulation. What happens if there is a lack of self-regulation? When you don't know how to prioritize your work for yourself, in one point of time, obviously, for the training that has been given in the field of social work, we know how to do multitasking. But if that is going to be the routine, one day or the other we may prone to do the overwork, overloaded with that. And overloaded with the work also, sometimes we can do happily. When our mood goes down, when their tough time comes in, when there are huge crisis comes in, we are stuck. Then it will bring in an imbalance in physical and the psychological health one point of a time. If the balance is something which is missed, it's not about what problem you face. It's about, how much balance that you have. People who are sitting here, nobody can say that I am free out of problem. Everyone will have some of the other problems in our life. So it's not about the problem that we have, it's about, how do we manage, what is the balance that we have, what are the coping mechanisms that we have, how resilient are we in able to move forward. If we are stuck, it is an issue, but if we are able to move forward in life, that talks about the balance. So when we are prone to overwork, so they may have an imbalance in our physical and the psychological health. Slowly what happens, especially when we are working in a field where so much of compassion, love is expected, we may be drained out, we may live in a position where compassion fatigue comes in. Tomorrow Professor Jessica will highlight on how compassion fatigue will be very dangerous for a service profession. When a compassion fatigue comes in, it will lead to the burnout. So usually we see that, when you're working in a caring profession, you see that, caregivers will have this burnout. At one point of a time, if we are not able to take care of ourselves, we can have the burnout. So probably that may reflect in having a low quality of work and then an unhealthy living. All this will become as a circle. Probably you say that, you try and somehow work, and then you again set up. And again, this turmoil runs again and again. At one point, we find it very difficult. When we find it very difficult, what is the contribution that we are going to make to the people, and especially to the clients who are going to come in? See, the reflect love. So as a social worker, what has been expected from us is reflecting compassion, reflecting professionalism, reflecting help. That is what, when you look into the picture, you see that, it's a reflection. So when you are dull, what is the kind of reflection that you're going to give it to your client? Okay, your client comes with so much of your problem. Most of a client comes with so much of overload. It's expecting something from you. When you're low, what are you selling? What are you selling? Is it you're selling compassion, love, or you're selling again a depression, sadness, or your mood swing? Now that's one of the important aspects. Again, when you look into that, this caption means a lot. You cannot pour it from an empty cup, and you must fill your cup first. See, for instance, a person with a body, with the physical flesh, sometimes we feel, especially with the physical health, with the overburden, sometimes we feel low. All right, the body is nothing. The body feels very empty without the spirit. What is that spirit is the positive energy that comes in. All right, the cycle, though, there has to be a balance between the physical and the psychological health, physical and the mental health. So when ourselves, as a social workers, when we are feeling empty, when you feel low, you cannot fill others with happiness. When you cannot fill others with content and send them with content, you cannot sell messages of positivity when you're low with that. So this is something very, very important. And you say that, most of the person, they walk into social workers, they come to social workers having a lot of expectation. They are not here to listen to your stories. They don't want to listen to your mood swings or what has happened. They wanted something extra. So imagine, so social workers are something, we need to be fill ourselves very strong with a positive vibes. Self-care is so much important. So when you look at, the aspects of self-care, and again, there are 6 different aspects of self-care are there. And I'm not going to deal much into that because we are going to have a separate session on it. And when you look at, the physical, psychological, workplace, emotional, spiritual, and relationship, these are the 5 aspects related to it. And probably when you look at, physical, say this one thing that I will explain why physical health is so important. This is one of the WHO data in 2018 that was released. It's about the statistics of global health estimates. Probably let's keep this pandemic outside because this is a time of uncertainty. And this is data from 2016. You look at it, top, these reasons for death is always related to lifestyle diseases, something, heart diseases, stroke, pulmonary diseases, there are certain things that can be avoided due to self-care if you're properly able to take care of a good diet, good sleep, proper nutrition, and good lifestyle. Certain things can be avoided. You see, never imagine that diabetic could be one of the leading cause, or heart disease can be leading cause 50 years before. All right, there was a lot of communicable diseases were there. Now there was a non-communicable disease. Probably if you talk about, people are saying that this is an era of a non-communicable disease, but this pandemic has again topsy-turvy the results. Now it is an era of communicable disease as well. So when you look into that, these are the areas that we need to be focused on. So I'm not going to more detail into the different aspects related to it. And again, when you look at the different dimensions of wellness, different dimensions of healthcare, it is pretty much similar to the self-care dimensions. You have physical self-care, social, how are you able to maintain the relationship with others, intellectually, how are you going to contribute, how are you contented, how is your self-esteem, spiritually. Again, when we talk about spiritual health, it's not about religion, it is about the faith that you have in living. It's about the destination that you strongly believe, because everybody has got a problem in the world. How are we surviving? Because we have a hope that something or the other will come in a way. We can manage it. So the faith that you have in life, the faith that you have in living, the faith that you have in destination, that factor talks about the spiritual health. And when you talk about the emotional health, again, the balance over it. And I keep telling this to people, whenever there is a problem that happens to individual, there is possibly only three things that can happen for invariably any problem that you undergo. Number one, either over a period of time, when you do certain thing or something eventually happens, the problem changes over a period of time. Say for instance, when you have your relationship issues, okay, sometimes you try talking, settling about good communication, you set up, try sending out the messages so that you restore the relationship, the problem is rectified and the person feels happy. Number two, sometimes when you experience a problem, all right, forever the problem doesn't change, only the person keeps changing. Say for instance, death of a loved one, that's a problem because there's a sudden death of a loved one, that's a huge crisis for you. The crisis is not going to change ever, all right, the person who's dead is not going to come back, all right, nobody has got the power to come back, it's a destination that has to go, all right. So when you're in this situation, the person learns to adopt to live without that person. Without that person, he is able to manage, he is able to resilient, he is able to move forward. This is number two when the problem arises. Number three, the problem doesn't changes and the person doesn't changes. Constantly there is a conflict. The problem keeps continuing. Say for instance, either in the case one is a relationship issue, the person is not ready to either to work on the relationship, not either to give up on the relationship. Constant conflict happens. Even in the same cases like death, if the person is dead, the person doesn't accept the death, he's not ready to move forward in life, there's always a conflict. What happens in case three? Either the conflict goes to a extreme, either the person has to quit life, either chooses to suicide, or sometimes he lives life without peace, constantly with a problem, constantly with the depression, constantly with an ill health. There's only possibly three things happens. Now one thing we should understand, it is not about the problem, it's about your perception about the problem. Everybody has got a problem. That's what I say. Even in this pandemic, you see that there are people very highly resilient. They know about, okay, whatsoever comes, we are ready to face it. There are certain people who are still in the safer zone, they keep thinking about it, panicking about it. So it's not about the problem, it's about your perspective to the problem. So self-care talks more about how you can bring in a perspective change in about looking about things. Occupational health, very important, because as a working professionals, when you look into that, majority of the time that we spend apart from the family is the occupation. So how is that occupational self-care can be taken? So when we look into that, I was talking more about the good mood perspective and everything. Like, can you take a time to reflect on what is that good mood? When you talk about, I feel very good, I feel very bad, what is that? It is nothing but the feeling that we experience are nothing more than the chemical reactions that taking place inside our body. Say for instance, if you say that I feel very happy, which means that in happiness hormones has been secreted. I feel very low because there's a mood that brings in low, all right. So each and every emotions we experience is a result or release of certain hormones in the body. Again, when we talk about emotions, emotions are not very close to heart or very to mind alone. It's very very mediocre that we see in the pictures and the movies. We talk about emotion, they assimilate with the heart, or sometimes they say with the brain. No, emotions are embodied in throughout our body. So our bodies are responsible for the hormones. So some hormones are responsible for making us feel good. And some hormones are responsible for making us feel bad. There are four different hormones which I'm going to talk about it. So as a social worker, very little knowledge in science, have been doing this workshop, and I found this four hormones which are very important, and we can do activities to make this hormone secreted more. We can consciously allow that the things to happen. So many of you know about these four hormones, which is dopamine, oxytocin, endorphin, and serotonin. And these hormones, when you talk about endorphin, when we exercise, there is so much this endorphin hormone is more closely attached with the physical self-care, so physical health. So when we talk about when is this hormones is released, when any individual indulge in more than 30 minutes or a minimum of 30 minutes in the physical activity, naturally our body secretes its endorphin. The endorphins is responsible for making us very alert, physical energy that gives us a lot of happiness in us, and it gives us good mood in that. Okay, that's why when you see that especially when people are doing gymming for the first time, or people who start doing exercises, initially when we do exercise, we find it very difficult. Let's say few of you who live, who have this habit of going to visiting a gym or doing an exercise or going for a walking. Initial days when you do it for the first day or a second, you feel pain, pain over the body. Let's say you started working for half an hour. All right, so first day you feel heavy loaded with your body, you feel knee pain, the entire body pains. So if you start continue doing it for second time, again severe pain, third day severe pain, and from fourth day and fifth day dramatically the pain gets reduces. And if you're constantly doing the walking or the practices over the period of time, the pain slowly settle down and you feel energetic. That's why you see that people who are in daily doing the exercise, they'll see that today I went for a walking, I feel very energetic. And it sometimes feels very laughy for the people who have not done it, who have not experienced it. Is it walking gives you refreshment, or if going for gym for a 1 hour workout gives you refreshment? This is nothing but when you start doing the exercises in the initial days, the hormone that is released is endorphin. Actually, the endorphin is like coping mechanism. It is released to cope up with the pain, but if it is done over a period of time, that gives a relaxation to the body. So that's why in the first point it says that this hormone helps the body to cope with the pain of exercises. Any pain that because the endorphin is released to cope up. When it is done as a routine, that coping mechanism helps you to energize you. So this is one of the way that again laughing, generating good laughing mechanism brings in a lot of helps us to generate the endorphin. Next, when you talk about dopamine, it is called as pleasure hormone. Dopamine helps you to give mental alertness. What is mental? And that's why when you drink any energy drinks, tea or coffee, you feel that mentally alert. Dopamine is released by eating foods that are rich in protein, so which is again, it talks about more about the physical nutritious health. Very very important how you take care of a balanced diet in our journey of life. Sometimes we accomplish little things or big things when somebody appreciate us. Okay, you did a good job, you look what you the work did is commendable. When people appreciate us, the dopamine secretes inside. That's why we feel happy. Now you understand, we do the same thing again and again. That's called reinforcement. We do the same thing again and again to get rewards, to get prizes, because we feel happy about it. Somebody appreciates it. Okay, you did your presentation really good. Oh, you attended the class regularly, that's good. When somebody appreciates it, it is so internal, you want to do these things again and again. Why you wanted to do it again and again? When somebody appreciates it, that's dopamine keeps secreted, so you feel happy about it, you feel very good about it. So this is something dopamine gets secreted. So again, you can be responsible for other or other person to for their dopamine to be secreted. So start appreciating people in life. In social week talks about positive vibes has to come. Even for small thing, appreciate them. It not necessarily it has to be their responsibility to. It's okay to go and step in and appreciate people. So the same thing, when people gets appreciated or feel good, we feel that. And in each instant, and that's why you see that when you go and do shopping, when you buy new things, you feel very happy about it. Even in all this sadness, in all the things that is attached with the cultural things, you see that, buying new things, buying, gifting people, that all brings in secretion of this dopamine. And serotonin has got a special name. It is called as, happiness hormone. Serotonin sometimes called as a happiness hormone, right? It helps us to prevent that mood swing. And especially serotonin is very easy, the hormone gets secreted when you expose yourself to sunlight, and eat foods related, which is very rich in carbohydrates, and also by exercising. And again, sometimes, this happiness hormone, we indulge in some activities related to happiness. Say for instance, have your funny times, or something, watching a joke, or sharing with people, chatting with people. Sometimes happiness, is very important to our life, so that will ease. Everybody is stuck with so much of issues, especially during the pandemic situation, so much of uncertainty that is happening. There's a lot of report that comes in, unprediction comes in, and the things changes over it. So we should know how to keep ourselves happy. Say for instance, serotonin is released when we do it in a way that can benefit others. Say for instance, one of the article that I read about, what are the ways to generate, or what are the ways that serotonin can be secreted. One of the author writes this way: somebody writes a blog to express their mind, or express what they wanted to do it, and when they finish it, they feel that, very happy, because the serotonin keeps secreted. And sometimes, question and answer session, they have a blog to write it. When people appreciate about it, serotonin gets secreted. So your contribution to the society, now I know few of us, will be contributing in terms of telecounseling to others, in terms of helping to others. That time we feel good, because we take a position of upper hand, we are supporting someone, we feel that we are worth in supporting to others. In those cases, serotonin keeps secreted, helping others. I think for social workers, by naturally, I think it should be secreting, because we in a profession, we've been helping others. Next, when you talk about, oxytocin. Oxytocin is released, when we become closer to other human. The simple, with the touch that we give, the small hug that we give, it is something called, when we hug a family or the friend members, the oxytocin is released, the humanly touch, which means, somebody is with us, somebody is okay, patting you when you're crying, patting you. That is where that, oxytocin gets released. The physical touch can be related to interpersonal relationships. For the married couple, it can be the sexual relationships. All right. So all those things, that helps an individual to get oxytocin secreted. And that's why you see that in an Indian culture, when there is a death, people come, hug and cry. This is something that is so in the Vedic literature. People know about it. The touch can definitely bring in a huge difference in the individual's health. And that's why you see that when a child cries, the child doesn't know who is carrying them. Just, pat them, just, shake the baby, touch the baby, baby feels that, there is some connection is there, and stops crying. So the touch will always have a greater impact in the lives, oxytocin. And again, when we talk about it, this is very applicable for the interpersonal relationships. All right. So somebody giving them, but in a professional relationships, we know that, it can be 2 or 3 taps that can be given to a counselor. Apart from that, there's a professional relationship that has to be maintained, keeping in that into account. And when we look into that, what are the benefits of self-care? Is there any benefits that the self-care can do to people? Definitely, there's a lot of benefits that we can do. Healthier lifestyle, as I said, lot of these components related to self-care, talks about, physical aspect of it. How are you going to maintain it? Good nutritious food, taking about it, balanced diet that we're doing about it, taking care of physical time. All those are the benefits. Better physical health, again, improved recovery from illness. Say for instance, somebody is recovering. All right. So when people talk about the rehabilitation, let's understand rehabilitation, it's not only the physical aspect of it, it's more about the psychological and the emotional aspect of it. The positive vibes that will always have an impact on the physical health. That's what we talk about. There's always a connection between psycho and soma, and the body and the mind. So there's so much of positive vibes that has to come in. So that helps in the physical recovery. Increase the resilience. So now we talk about what is resilience. Resilience is an ability for the individual to bounce back to the normal level. Everybody has got a problem. So how are some people is able to move forward? Because they are not stuck with the problem. They have crisis, yes, they cry about it, they weep about it, they are depressed. Probably they will take time, in 1 or 2 days time, or it depends upon the issue, they weep weeks time, and they come back to the normal level. That is what, when you're going to take care of yourself, you're naturally bringing in, increasing your resilience. Next is the capacity to manage stress. So this is very important aspect of it. Everybody has got a stress, and how are we going to manage it? And once we need to understand whether you like it or not, life has to move on. You have to proceed, and there is always a destination that is kept for, and we have to move towards a destination. Whether you like it or not, it will move. There's only two way, whether you are setting everything and you're moving it happily by your approving yourself, or you're stuck, you're being forced by certain things that you're moving. There's again perspective change that comes in, which is what are you choosing it. Again, greater productivity, as the initial stage, principal was addressing about it. If the equipment is not strong, the slowly the productivity comes down. In social work, what is the tool? In social work, what is a tool? As a case manager, what is a tool? You yourself as a tool, you yourself as a powerful tool in bringing in a change in the people. So if you're not going to take care of yourself, now definitely nothing is going to happen. This is what benefit of self-care. When you're going to take time for yourself, when you're going to reflect on both yourself, when you're going to have a strong mental health, you're going to impart the productivity. You're able to meet so many clients, you're going to give a lot of positive energy. There's so many people who are going to wanting to come to you. There's a lot of productivity that can happen. Again, healthy relationships, especially when you're working in a sector. Let's say, for instance, it's a multidisciplinary, say, example. All the people are working in a caring profession, so everybody is bound to have same similar feelings, which is very dull feelings related to sickness, issues related to psychiatric illness and everything. When you're not able to transact your positive vibes, again there is a relationship issues possibility can come. When you're able to take care of yourself, you can be able to have a very very healthy relationships, which is very important. And when you talk about increase social cohesion, what is social cohesion? It's a gelling force that you can come in just in a, so in social group, or we call it as community resilience, or we call it as social cohesion, is which is mean the gelling force. So which means you are able to understand others, you're able to care for others. Only when you have a sound mind, you have time for others to think. So the benefit of self-care is something, it will bring in the increase in the self cohesion, and also improves the quality of life. And improves the quality of life, it reduces the symptoms related to mental health. So what are the symptoms related to mental health? Living with depression, with constant, you don't have a sound mind, you don't take care of yourself, you don't eat well, you don't sleep well, you don't communicate with problem, you isolate yourself. All those problems can, because talking about isolation, you have the component of interpersonal relationship comes in the self-care strategy. Again, when you don't eat, physical health comes in as a strategy. When you don't take care of your sleep and in everything, again physical health comes in. There are every other components of being taken care by self-care. Again, when you look about self-care, self-care improves our lives in different areas and in different ways, which are very important to the overall health. Again, one component talks about physical, one talks about occupational health, one, so everything is important. Again, let's understand these are all embodied in each other. Nothing can be seen in isolation. You cannot say, okay, physical health is something different, you channelize it separately. Because everything is important. When you're taking good diet, if you don't have a proper sleep, again there's going to be a pattern of cycle that is going to come in, which disturbs everything. So everything has to go hand in hand. And one of the important aspects that I would talk about, practicing self-care can have a remarkable effect on your self-esteem. Very very important. Again, how do you estimate yourself? That's a positive vibe that you have. Whether how much you think that you are able to move forward, how much you trust yourself. That is one thing that practicing self-care can improve your strategy. Say for instance, you have a problem, you have an effective self-care strategy, and you're solving it, you're moving forward, you yourself get confident. And next time, there's an assurance that comes in, anything that comes, you're able to face and move forward. When we take care of ourselves, it affirms the self-worth. Because wow, how, when do you take care of yourself? Because you feel yourself is worth, I'm important, I should take care of my health, I should sleep well, because my health is so important, because I am adding value to someone else's life. There is someone is dependent on me. When you start valuing yourself, that's how the self-care comes in. It is again irreversible. When you take care of yourself, you're also valuing your self-worth. By taking care of ourselves and our needs, we are telling ourselves that I deserve this. Yes, I deserve the sleep. Now I deserve peace. I deserve a good, happy life. I deserve to be in peace. All those things happens when you practice self-care. And with the regular self-care, no, our self-awareness is greatly enhanced. This is something very important, especially during this setting a context on this pandemic. And I'm sure 70% of us, whether you like it or not, whether you realize or not, you're spending much time on taking care of yourself. But whether you are realizing it, whether you're mindful about it, is a bigger question. Because the time that you spend with you're unfortunately, in this time of pandemic, in this time of lockdown, we are forced to do that. All right, are we enjoying it? That's a bigger question. Say for instance, you get up, you do your routine, you eat, and you spend time with it. Are you valuing it? Are you reflecting on whom did we speak, what did we speak, what did we eat, and how much time we sleep, how much time we contribute to others, are we mindful about it? That is something that we need to self that brings in self awareness. Our go to activity would usually be something that we're already enjoying, but are we aware about it? There's something that you're newly, for instance, many of us, have been talking to people, they are realizing new opportunities. Say for instance, they would have tried it once or twice, one of my friends said that, I've never been passionate about music, but it was so boring. When I just listened to it, I started singing, I never knew that I had the skill, which is something they were exploring about it. So when you explore more about yourself, you're being self-aware about it, new things can come in. And I'm sure one or two people would have realized it. One of my one of my friend started writing about their blogs, which probably the time doesn't allow them to experience it. But now this is an ideal time that is given for us to explore more on the self. Which are the things that we like to do it, which are the things is naturally is given, and why do you want it, which are the things that we don't like it. It's something, we can keep it aside and move forward in life. So these are the things that help. Self-care helps us to more aware about the self. When our self-esteem and the self-awareness improves, it has a very positive effect on the overall mindset. Very important. When we know about our self-esteem and the self-awareness, so much of positivity that comes in, so much of trust about ourselves that comes in, that in turn enables us to care for our friends, families, and especially our clients and the significant others in our families. Very important. And now, we're straight away going to look into the key challenges related to self-care. And before moving into the key challenges related to self-care, there are key variables probably related to self-care. I will give you a glimpse about it. And there are key variables. There are something called, we call it as a positive psychological variable. There are 4 positive psychological variables that is very, very important for the well-being of individuals. Number one, we talk about the resilience. Resilience is something that is very important for people to be resilient over it, to take on the problem. Next is hope. Third is optimism. Fourth is happiness. These are the 4 psychological variables very important for the individuals to move forward in any situation. Giving the context of this pandemic, how resilient are we? How hopeful are we about the future? How optimistic about we are, and how happy we are. These are the 4 things that decides people about. Invariably, they are saying that invariably any personality people can be. If these 4 areas can be acquired, or it can be practiced, it can be learned, it can be experienced over it, then the psychological well-being of the individual can be really strong. That's what the spillover we are going to look into the next few days. And while looking into, coming back and looking into the challenges of self-care, there are definitely a lot of practical challenges that we have in self-care. Day before yesterday, Hindu article writes about, people say that, one of the cheapest thing for a person to do is self-care. But, and the cheapest thing is the toughest thing for an individual to do as well. I didn't know. So people, there are a lot of people. The day before yesterday, there was a Hindu article talks about about self care, why it is important, but it is very tough for people. Why? Because we start negotiating on our health. And first thing, when you talk about carer mindset, especially when we are in the profession of social work, caring for others, we always think it is more important to help others, and I will be okay. That's constantly we say that after all, I'm a counselor, after all, I'm a social worker, I know how to take care of it. It's important how much I contribute. But this is one of the biggest challenge that we have, because this is a mindset that we keep in ourselves. Next is something called, superhero mindset. I should be able to cope. After all, I'm a counselor. As I said, sometimes as a social workers, when we experience problem, and I have seen this when a couples are as a social workers, it's so tough. They work out on the relationship issues, and especially when the friends are social workers, because they try think that after all being a social worker, I don't know why the problem comes. See, we are not aliens in the society. We are human beings first. The identity that we carry is human beings. So all the emotions, all the attitude, behaviors related to every human, everybody will carry this. It's not necessarily the counselors and the social workers will have a different the human inside them. It's just a acquired knowledge that we have. Probably, this is one of the stopping forces, stumble block for us to proceed in taking care of ourselves. We say that I should be able to cope. After all, I'm a counselor. That's one thing that we don't seek help from others, because you have this hesitant. After all, I'm a social worker. How can I go and ask them? Because I'm in a position that I'm helping others. This is one of the biggest challenges people face. Let me tell you one thing. Every human being needs emotions. Every human being needs a platform to express emotion. It's okay to ask for help, no matter who we are. All right. The next is something about the time. I'm too busy. I need to work for my first. My work is first. Something, see, especially when we are working in a profession and taking care, this is something you cannot postpone. Say, for instance, when a client comes urgent for a client for or something, client comes with an emergency. It's not like, okay, I will do this target tomorrow. You can't do that, because that's with an emotion. That's how every situation for us is like that. When you're working in a community, if there is a crisis, you cannot say that, it's time for me 2 days, I will take break, I'll come and work. No, no, that can't be done. That's how it is. So how are we taking ourselves in midst of all this busy schedule? Are we having time for ourselves? That's very important. Competing priorities, there are so much of priorities are there. How are we going to schedule the timings? That's very, very important. In a social profession, we take things for granted, and I'm sure none of us will here is saying that, I work only from 8 to 5. We get calls beyond 5. That's how our the culture is, how probably the work culture has set a trend like that. But in midst of all those things, are we able to take time for ourselves? Are we able to break these challenges and move forward in taking time for ourselves? That's something very important. And second, when you talk about, perceived value, say, for instance, I don't believe I deserve it or I'm worth of it. Self-care has no time or waste of. I'm sure, whatever I have been spoken, nothing is new. Not even one single sentence what I have spoken is new to you. Everything is so common. This is something very, very, very difficult for self-care, including myself. When I've known about this concept a year before, probably 1.5 years before, I never thought this will have so much of impact. In fact, I will tell you, I have not fully practiced it, but I'm learning it. I'm in the stage of practicing. Until I had one of my very close friends at a very young age, as a very, very practical social worker, had a very mysterious, work-life balancing, issues related to work-life balance, overstress, working for 13 hours, 14 hours, sleepless night. Very young person of 32 years, as I had a very massive heart attack and died. Now that's how I was able to reflect on what is self-care. When we are giving so much to the society, who is going to take care of ourselves? When you're not able to advocate for yourself, whom are you advocating? That's something very, very, very important. And when I one of my very senior professor about self-care, and my professor said, probably, this concept is very related to Western context. We Indian, we don't talk about self-care. Very true. But we have been doing it. Only thing is, we have not consciously spoken about it. That's something. All the self-care strategies, what you will be dealing with tomorrow, in coming days, everything that is so in our part of our culture. Only thing is, we have not realized it. Something called meditation, which is so in our culture, we have not realized about it. We have politicized everything. Probably that's how the goodness of something has not reached people. It's time for us to reflect on what it is and take benefit out of it. And when you talk is no, not part of routine. I'm really motivated. So when people say that, self-care, yeah, very important, I need to take that, I need to do it. But you're motivated, but it's hard to change their habits. Start doing it. It's nothing, I have never done it before. See, for instance, We think that, see, I work from morning to evening, I don't have time for myself. If you're not able to carry on one or two things, how are you going to move forward? Very important, how are you going to spend time for yourself? You have to set your routine, something or the other. At the end, I'm going to share one bingo chat, that's give you different aspects related to self-care strategies. If you can pick up one or two, or even a few things possible, that you can do it. Next, workplace culture. See, no, I know self-care practicing is okay, but it is not part of a routine. Lack of support, encouragement, I'm definitely sure, especially we are in the caring profession, you cannot say this is not my target, this is my self-care time, I will not do it. Something, because we deal with emotions, we don't deal with missions. So rationalizing certain things is very difficult, because we can emotionally we can do it. Rationalizing certain things is something which is very, very difficult. But it's important, especially during this pandemic time. And we know that, we are going to have a huge challenge in working with people, especially if you're in the area of medical and psychiatry, dealing with counseling, or working directly with people for any matter, working with employees. It's going to be a paradigm shift for people, and people are going to definitely look for forward for support. And if your cup is not full, if you're not filled with spirit of positive energy, the flesh is nothing. As a physical health, or the individual as a person, we cannot do anything. So the positive vibes is so important. Unless we are full, we cannot do anything. Next, and this is something a myth, self-care isn't selfish. Sometimes in our part of our culture, or part of our knowledge, you see that it's good to help others, it is serve others, that's how it is. And but all our value system talks about it. But it's so important that we take care of ourselves. It is not being selfish. It's definitely not being selfish. It's about consciously, and it is very intelligent move that you take. Self-care is necessary for our effectiveness and successful in honoring our profession and personal commitments. Very important. Anybody who wants to succeed in your life, succeed in your profession, first you need to succeed in yourself. You need to be sound. You need to be having a balanced mind. That's what in Maslow's hierarchy it says, that the basic needs has to be met in order to you go move forward. And again, I will say that basic of your self need has to be met. When you are having so much of problems, so much of issues, I'm not saying that person with problem cannot do counseling, but I'm saying that if you're not able to manage it, if you're not able to balance it, it's definitely difficult. That's how you will have, when you're not able to balance it, when the client talks about the problem, you'd start crying with them, you'd start loving. That we call it as, instead of being very empathetic, we feel very sympathetic about ourselves. We starting putting ourselves into thy shoes. And you start one point of the empathy moves into a state of sympathy, instead of feeling for the client. Most of the time we will be feeling with the client. We'll be feeling with them, we'll be crying with them. No, we have to feel for them. So there's a lot of differences. When you feel for them, you take a position of, you have your own boundaries, you set outside, and then you feel for them. You feel with them is something, you move into their boundaries, you're moving, opening your boundaries. Altogether, you're into an emotional trauma. That is not allowed for a social worker. We have got some social ethics in that, working with people. And again, this is the chart that I will be sharing with you all. So this talks about the life self-care wheel. So each component, I'm sure for you it will be very difficult to look into the screen, and this is going to be shared in the in your WhatsApp and in your email, so you can look into that. And in physical, you talk about how a safe housing. So have you been a safe place to stay, and regular medical care, eating healthy, exercises, and being sexually alert, getting enough sleep, taking a vacation, take time off, massage, all those things are listed. And I'm not saying that everything you should follow everything. What are the things that is possible? And I'm reinforcing the thought, what is self-care to me, not be the self-care to you. What is a me time? Let's say that, in physical, it talks about get a me time. What is your me time? For me, when I have a problem, I don't reflect on it, I actually express it. So I have my own couple of friends or my family members, I express it out, I went out, I feel relaxed. That's how I do it. So if someone have a habit of writing a journal, so take what is your me time, very, very important of it. We have been constantly doing everything. A simple thing that you can, before going to sleep, if you can take a 5 minutes time of reflect on what has happened today, what all you did. It's like a flashback time. How in movies they will just go to the flashback and come back. Can we have a flashback time every night on through whatever happens towards a day? Something that you can do it. And professional, there's a list of things that is a, and in professional there's one thing that is a, learning to say no to people. As a social worker, we don't want to put a sorrow face. We don't want to say no. We always want to say yes, 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 I'll do it. I want to do it. We always wanted to be in good books. So something that, uncompromising. Okay, it's okay to be in the good book of others. And what are you compromising on? Is this compromising on your own health, compromising on your own values to take care of yourself? This is something we need to reflect on. And then again, psychological self reflection, writing a journal. And this is something and one activity that you will do it, writing a journal, but it will have a lot of meaning. Years before, people have this habit of writing diaries. Now I don't know how many of you will do it. Probably our social media will tell us. The Facebook will have all the update, the Insta stories will talk about. But anything, it can be any digital media or anything, but are we taking time to do that, which is very good. And in fact, I will say that, if something that you wanted to post a photo and write something about it, that's well and good, because you're taking time for yourself. And probably in the Indian culture, they'll say that, these people are trying to exhibit themselves, it's okay. But as long as you're happy about expressing it to people, and you wanted to stay connected with people, that's fine. Whatever is happy for you and keeping yourself content, I think go ahead. This will be shared to people. This is something that I was sharing about self-care bingo, and I'm sure you will be receiving that in your chat box. And this is something that, you deserve the best thing. There is something, the list of 30 things are given, 30 plus things are given. If you can take and work on any 10 things, that's absolutely, you can have it as a routine schedule. Say for instance, meditation. It can be any personal meditation for 10 minutes, but you should do it every day. You can choose meditation as one. Taking a warm bath could be relaxing mindfulnessly. Keeping a journal or writing, dancing for 10 minutes, or stretching out, or doing yoga. It can be by practice or something. It can be along with the medication. Okay, helping someone as a plan of routine. So in this cases alone, you don't keep your regular work as a help someone. Have something it's separate. Eating a chocolate can be eating your favorite dish that you are taking a nap. But never underestimate a small nap. Will have a very refreshing energy that you can go in for a walk. Have your loved ones, have your people, so that take time, go with them. Even going for a walk, if you want to hear a song, or anything that's in, having crafting, doing your own craft, taking time for some people, celebrating, all in this. If you can, if we are too busy, if you can have at least five plus, at least five things, you can take it and make it as a serious habit and do it over a period of time, you will definitely see a change. Because I'm saying, one thing, the biggest challenge with self-care, everybody thinks everything is normal, everything is okay. I know about meditation, I know about writing a journal, I know. Let's not negotiate on it. Even the small changes that you take consciously to take care of yourself will definitely have an impact. And I would appreciate every one of you for taking your time in midst of all this busy schedule to be part of the self-care. This is something which is very important in coming days. We're going to deal with some psychological variables, which is very important, in not only in exercising with your client, but exercising in your life as well. Yeah, this is my last slide. Thank you, and I'm ready for the questions to move forward. And as you talk about it, self-care, it's something that you take time. It's like you're hugging yourself, taking a moment, you will be okay. And don't forget, this is very, very important. And I'm ready for the questions. Meanwhile, you can also start working on your self-care bingo. At the end of the sessions, we will be having a tool that has been given to you, that is a professional self-care tool. And we are doing it for an academic purpose. There's a two-way learnings are there. One, you can also be self-aware about where you live, where you are. And we will do the rating also. We'll give you the how the rating could be done for those scales. And data that we will collecting is for an academic purpose. And thank you for your support. And we can move on to the question and answer session.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was an amazing session. Now we'll move on to the question and answers. So we have a question from Ms. Udaya Ganeshan. She asked you to give some suggestions on how to overcome the superhero attitude.
Okay. Say, for instance, when you talk about the superhero attitude, this comes in one of the huge challenges which related to social work. There are two things that are there. Number one, the superhero attitude comes to ourselves. It is not the society has. We ourselves think that, what happens if I go and tell others? Sometimes because, it is not only a social worker, it's something that happens to a strong personality in a family as well. All right, say for instance, when you see somebody with so strong and an entire family looks at you very emotionally strong, when this person falls down, there is some kind of a block is there, but this person is not able to go and express it out because there's a lot of expectation that comes from the family. And sometimes this person looks into it because everybody thinks that, commonly they say that if you yourself is down, what others will do it. That's what they usually tell it, when they're very person who is very emotional. What happened if you are dull, what is the family is going to do? This person itself started crying. I don't know what is going to happen to the family. That's something that has been expected from the society. That's one way. Number two, we ourselves will think that, I should be able to be cope up. Let's all understand that, we are not a rational human beings. We are emotionally embodied. Each one of us. We are first identity that we have in the societies as a human, and the human was bound to have equal emotions to everybody else. Equal emotions, attitude, behaviors. It is only because when you come to learn this as a profession, you try to adopt to that. It's not necessary that you will not leave the innate human behaviors, which is prone to have good emotions, bad emotions. It's okay to fry. And one thing we should superhero attitude, or one thing we should understand, we are all human. We are bound to have problems, and when we have problems we will break down. It's okay to ask help, and nobody is going to talk about it. We need to come out of a shell when asking help. And asking help is not a position of powerless. That is just one message that I want to give you. Because when people ask for help, it's sometimes understood as the person who is unable to do it, who is in a powerless position, and somebody who is helping in a powerful position. Let's break this stigma. Let's break this mindset. The person who is asking help is a bold decision that he is making. It's a conscious decision. It's an attitudinal decision that he's making, because he doesn't want the situation to be like that. He wants a good decision to bring in a change in that. Let's have a different perspective to helping people or get help. So when a person who's as a social worker, when you have a problem, please ask for help. Asking help is not something talks about your weakness. Asking help talks about your very strong decision that you're making to bring in a change in yourself. In midst of all this crisis, you're making a strong decision to bring the change, which is something talks about your strong personality. So asking for help talks about your strong personality. Let's break that chain of, asking help is something related to low power, then inability. Let's break the chain and let it start from us. So that is something that, that message has to go.
Thank you, ma'am. The next question from our participant Karna Barnam is that, can you explain a little bit more on dopamine and give some examples for better understanding?
Yeah. So dopamine is something that, it gives the mental alertness. And especially, for instance, in life, when you will have little tasks, everybody, even if a person who is disinterested in life also will have something that they wanted to achieve. When you are setting some target, when you're achieving that target, when you feel that, psychologically you're filling that target, you're achieving that goal, and that's where, when you go to the sense of that achievement, you feel that, very happy about it, because the dopamine gets secreted. And dopamine can be secreted when in the foods, when we eat foods related to rich in protein. Okay. And one of the things, it is something related to say for instance, achieving a target. Say for instance, you're writing an exam. All right, writing an exam, you're fixing for a target. If you achieve that target, that is one area. So sense of achievement is like sense of accomplishment, sense of finishing, the sense of reaching the goal. So these are the things, when you try reaching it, this is also called as, the pleasure hormone that you'll say. You reach that and you feel very pleasure about it. And in psychology they'll call it as, reinforcement, because you like the thing, you wanted to do the same thing again and again because you like that expected result. Say for instance, you start doing gym, so within a 2 weeks time you feel that, some changes in your physique, or you feel energetic because you like that outcome. It's not you like the process. It's not that every day you want to go to gym because you like the outcome. You wanted to do that, continue with the process again and again because you like the expected result. The same thing happens, say for instance, you study well and you get your outcome really well, and you like the outcome and you're ready to do with the process again and again. So in that way, when you start getting that sense of accomplishment, that's where the dopamine level and the dopamine gets released. So that's where, so you need to set targets, and especially to bring in the simple things, to bring in mental alertness, some kind of a health thing that you see people, they've been working exhausted for a long time. They take a shot of coffee, you feel that very energetic. You feel some tea or something, you feel very energetic because that brings in mental alertness.
Thank you, ma'am.
And for further things related to dopamine, I think you should go and Google it. All right, this is something, that little information that I have. Yeah, thank you.
Sure, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. The next question is from Ms. Saranya Arumugam. She asked you to explain more about overcoming lack of role models or support, especially at times like this when we have less time to share or seek support.
How to overcome when we don't have
Role models or support?
Is that
Yes,
question?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Or say for instance, especially see when we talk about this pandemic, for role model, when you talk about role model, let's say for instance you're talking about a counselor or you're talking about a medical supervisor, you talk about, for them itself it's a pandemic again. It is an uncertainty for anybody else. All right. So in this time of situations, when we are upset, the same upset the person, senior most person, or the person whom we expect to be a role model is also accepting. So how are we going to look into that? That's what I said. When we have a problem, it is not only this pandemic. For any problem, it's not, we need to focus only on change in the problem. It can be change in the perspective also. How positive we are about the changes. It's okay to feel low about it. And again, when we talk about it, and the concept why the self-care is something which is, I really liked it, the concept which talks more about the resilience. In social work also, we see that we are moved forward from problem solving model into a strength based model. All right, problem solving model is something, looks around the problem, or something looks around the who's the role model, looks around the environment for things to change. Whereas the strength based, something talks about your internal self. All right, in the problem solving model, number one, you will be looking for changes outside, you will be looking for motivations outside, you're looking for something which is outside. All right, so that as an individual you can move forward in life. Whereas in strength based model, it is not muching, it's not about problem, it's about, how to maintaining yourself, how are you going to be strengthen yourself, so that any problem that you comes, you're already prepared. All right. So in fact, the question that you asked, in this cases, when you don't have a support from people, when you don't, what I'm saying, how are you supporting yourself? That's the first question. When you have a problem, you're taking time for yourself, you're giving time for your emotion, you're giving time to express it out, you're giving time to take care of yourself. When you're not taking time to support yourself, definitely we have no rights to expect support from others. That is something, the rule of life, that I would say. First you need to take care of yourself. And again, when it comes to role model, probably, this is what my little experience with that, even that should be a crisis for others as well. So we cannot expect people. And again, self-care is something that, we have been slowly talking about. The younger generation, now we are talking about it. Probably this concept I'm hearing for last 5 years. Before that, we have not heard about it. Probably we did not have huge tensions. Now every day the problems is new, especially when the pandemic comes. Is the entire life is topsy-turvy now. The roles and responsibility, our routine has changed and everything. Then the new crisis comes, a new stress comes, then we need to adopt to the situation. So it is always better to look for how are we supporting ourselves than looking at how we others are going to support ourselves.
Thank you, ma'am. The next question is from Chapek Loving. He states that self-care during the pandemic is often experienced as a challenge with anxiety and stress overshadowing him. And with such self-awareness, he wants to know ways to motivate himself towards self-care again.
All right. For instance, self-care is something that, as I said in one of the slide, whether we like it or not, this pandemic, we are forced to spend much time with ourselves. All right. So consciously, with a little of contact, we are spending time either by doing what we like it, or either we are forced to doing what we don't like it, or something as a responsibility. And one thing that during the pandemic, as a self-care strategy, we can do it to overcome the challenges: have a routine, have a schedule, say for instance, initially when this lockdown has come, when I started doing telecounseling to people had various issues related to, I do this, but still I'm finding it very difficult to overcome. I said, are you having it as a routine schedule, so that your psychologically your mind gets set? Say for instance, morning wake up, you have this meditation time for half an hour, then you routine 2 hours, it's always a social time, so you talk with people or do something, and then 1 hour it's personal by routine. It seems like, it's a basic thing, but I will tell you, when you have a routine, psychologically your mind gets fixed about it. So that when you go and exercise, say for instance, if you're going to fix 2 hours for a social time, but if you're going to use your cell phone for more than 3 hours or 4 hours, that is self-awareness comes in, which means you're using this screen time for more than 3 hours or 4 hours. If you like it, you can set that as a routine. If you think that is not important for you, you want to reduce it out, you reduce it out. That's how, having a routine, especially having a schedule, is something which helps you. And when you have a schedule, if you are an individual, that you can have your schedule flexible. If you're with a family, no, keep the schedule, be informed to the family members, which is very, very important. If you're living with your spouse, it's important to tell your spouse about what is your timings about it. If you're with the family, parents and mothers and your siblings has to know about your timing, so that they get adjusted to it. Let's say for instance, we are going to have a family timing for 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock. If that is your personal timing, definitely that's going to be a conflict that comes in. Then you cannot say, I'm not able to practice it because my family doesn't cooperate. So it has to be adjusted with the family. So when you best thing is have a scheduled timing, and have at least 1 hour for your self-care. It can be part of anything. It can be cooking your own dish for yourself, or your family. It can be you can put it as 1 hour so that you do it, or exercise half an hour, that can be a self-care, or writing a journal for you, that can be doing it, or anything that you wanted to do it as your self-care strategy. Include that self-care strategy as part of your routine. That stick it on your table or wherever, or in your phone. Every day when you wake up, you wanted to look into the screen time, so that every night when you sleep, you wanted to look into your thing. And if you can do it for a week time, definitely you will notice your changes. And where is that your extra time is going on, where is that your timing is insufficient, and where is that you wanted to work on, what are the things that you can include, and which are the thing you love doing it, which there are certain things that you say that, for instance, in all the routines, sometimes you feel very tired and you would sleep for hours together. That is not in your routine at all. Then in next schedules, when you prepare it, you need to put some nap time for yourself. How are you going to schedule it? Scheduling is something which helps you. And when you schedule it, make sure that you inform it to your people whom you are staying with. It can your parents, siblings, or your spouse, or any of your family members. Or if you're a hostelate, keep your roommates informed. That is something which is very important. That helps you to break the challenge of self-care.
Thank you, ma'am. The next question is from Miss Neha. She states that sometimes people tend to be really fine with regards to their routine and lifestyle, but they face breakdown all of a sudden. How can we identify such issues when we are unaware of it?
Can you repeat the question?
Yes, ma'am. She states that sometimes when people seem fine with their routine and lifestyle, but all of a sudden face a major breakdown. How do we identify the underlying issue when we are not aware of what's the problem?
See, first, one thing that we should understand, our life, we are not created as robots. our life is full of emotion, which means we are prone to have good emotions and bad emotions as well. So in life, it's okay to have stress, it's okay to have crisis. And when you experience crisis, it's absolutely normal to experience crisis. If you feel low, absolutely normal and okay to feel low. If you're crying, it's absolutely normal to cry. If you're upset about it for a week or time, it's okay. But if something is affecting your self-care, if something is affecting your routine, say for instance you're not taking enough care for your personal bath or something, personal times, if you're not taking care of enough sleep, if you're not taking good food, if you're isolating, if there these certain indicators related to mental health, if there are indicators, as you are aware about it, if you think that is happening and you allow that for a reason of 1 or 2 days, that's fine, and you have to come back about it. That's where if the indicators prolongs for a day or two, that's where you need to do a whistleblower about your life, and you need to reflect on. Otherwise, say for instance, one among us, if you think that one of your family member, or say that say for instance a sudden failure that comes in an exam, you cannot say that I practice self-care, so I will not worry about it, I will comment about it in social media and I will laugh. There's no meaning about it. All right, it's okay, you can be sad about it, it's okay, absolutely normal, you can share with friends that you are upset about it. But are we able to resilient back and move forward? Probably this person who asked this question, on fourth day, I'll be talking about how, in what cases you will identify under what grounds resilience plays a normal role. And again, for resilience, everybody, this is so natural. There is something that natural resilience. For instance, in some of the problems, you will not do anything, you'll be silent, but things will automatically go away. You will become resilient. That's something called natural resilience that is comes in. So you need not to be panic about it unless and until it is really, really disturbing for you to move forward in life. That's how you can ask for it. It's okay, even in your profession of helping, you can ask for help, you can tell them. And when you ask for help, it's better to ask for a person whom you have really good trust. Otherwise you ask for someone who can again double the problem, that's again a double trauma for you. So it's ask for a professional help, so that you get your professional help done, so that you can move forward in life. And and especially when you're doing counseling, when you feel low, it's okay, I would advise you to take a break, probably a day, so that you get relaxed and come back and do it. Because without this positivity, you say that you're a counselor, your mind is full of your problem, that is crisis, and you're sitting, you will definitely not listen or understand. Counseling is about 90% of listening and understanding. When your mind is full thinking about your problem, the listening, there is no empty, there is no free mind to receive any information, because you're already overloaded with your emotions. So in that case, the time that is spent for the counselor is not advisable, and the time that is spent for the client is not also beneficiary, and the organization is not also going to get a credit. All right. So in that way, it's all advisable. Take a break of 1 hour or 2 hours of break to get yourself relaxed. Ask for a help, or do any of the simple thing. I would tell you. Say for instance, in the initial days when I was working with HIV, women infected and affected with HIV, or people living with HIV/AIDS, overloaded with emotions. People, new cases, when they know about HIV, they come. As I do counseling with them, feel very overburdened. So there you cannot go take a break and come back, because sometimes I'll be put in wards in GH for Thursdays alone to meet this client and bring them back to the organization that I'm working with, Positive Women Network. So in those cases, the simple thing that my supervisor will say, take a breathing exercise. So when you breathe in, so when you consciously breathe in through your nose and breathe out to your mouth. All right. So say for instance, when you breathe in at count, 1, 2, 3, 4, breathe in and then breathe out. When you breathe in, your tummy has to come out. When you breathe out, it has to go in. So look into the watching pattern. Consciously do this. If you can do it for 10 times, that's a huge relaxation that can be done during the work time when you're having the stress.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much for that tip, ma'am. The next question is from Ms. Vatsala. She states that homemakers who do self-care are looked different due to the social conditioning that is attached to them, that they are meant to serve others, and they develop a guilt when they are not able to do something for others and take time for themselves. Can you please share your view on this?
First thing, there is when the homemakers, where on what grounds I don't know, somehow the culture has put that in a trend, they are the bigger contributors. Only thing is, economically that they're not been rewarded. If the US policy like that comes to India, if the homemakers, the caregiving, caretaking work has to be a paid work, I'm sure the biggest contribution to this economy will be the work housewives. Credit goes to them especially. But one thing, when you talk about it, yes, definitely there's a differences there. Say for instance, while practicing with the gym, a few of the women come and do it. So in their entrance list, they will say working women or housewife. So in the housewife, when they write it, then they say the time allotted for them is only in the noon time. For all the working women's timing will be in the early mornings and late nights. So when you look into that, people will ask, uh, for a housewife already they are working, why they have to come to gym, or why they have to come to. I definitely understand that's a perspective change that has been in the society, and the work that has been done, caring job that has been done in the houses, it gets very very least recognition. And one thing that we need to understand, as we talk about this hormones of dopamine, accomplishing the task, there's always a woman keeps up a task and they start accomplishing. And that's how we say that, when a woman cooks, when the food is good, even the small appreciation that you give it, that's a motivation factor. In fact, when they did a study, a comparative study on mental health among working women and housewife, they found that, the housewife, the mental health among, women who are in the house, taking care of the job is strong than the working women. Why that? The small acknowledgement, some get it and some rarely don't get it. And what happens with the housewife, they don't have an expectation. So when they don't have an expectation, they're least bothered about it. Whereas the working women, they have got a high expectation. This has to be done. This has to be done. When the expectation is not fulfilled, then again the crisis or the stress comes in. But as a working woman, the woman at home, there's one tip that I would say it. That is also a job. That is also your responsibility. That's also you do it. But doesn't mean that you can compromise on your health. This is very important. What Vatsala has pointed out, the plight of housewife is really difficult, and that has to be given an importance. And self-care doesn't negotiate for different aspect for working women as for a housewife. Self-care is for everybody, as mental health is for everybody, it applies for everyone. So it is important how we take time for yourself is very important. And nowadays I see a lot of people come out and speak about it, and this is where it is very important. As a housewife, though your routine work, you see that so much of responsibilities are there, but take care of yourself, because you're the sole important person in the house. When you're taking care of others, there can be a concept of compassion fatigue that can come in. Compassion fatigue is something you're compassionate about everything. You work over a point of you're overburdened one point of time, and your compassion level goes down. You get fatigue about it, because how long I have been doing it, that comes to a stagnation point. That's how you need to realize about it. So self-care is so important. And unfortunately, I also regret that in some cultures, the caretaking work is not given much importance as they do the economic contribution to the country. So I hope in coming days, something that comes as an acknowledging by economy for the paid work for the caregivers. Otherwise, things are not going to come into the limelight. They are really really contributing a lot, but doesn't mean that they can compromise on the self-care.
Thank you, ma'am. The last question for the session is, can you please state or mention some tips to stay focused on self-care, to make it as a routine rather than just visiting it when there is, stress or when it is needed?
Okay, say for instance, there are 5 self-cares dimensions are there. If in each dimensions, if one can take 2 aspects or one aspect, say for instance in physical, if you can have, not necessarily somebody, say for instance person like me, physical healthcare, exercising, it's very difficult. So probably you can opt for a 10 minutes of meditation, all right, or something on having a walk, not as a physical, just as a 10 minutes, but keep that as a routine. Even if you're not able to walk for 45 minutes, 30 minutes, that's fine. But if you can do a mindful walking just for 10 minutes, keep that as a routine and fix the timing. 7 to 7:10 every day, invariably you walk it. Even if it is 7 minutes, keep it as 7 to 7. All right, keep that as a routine and do it. So let the body understand that, let the sync that comes from psychology and the psychological mind and the physical health. Okay, this is the time that we will do it. Sometimes you'll say that, how much ever you do it, if it is food time, you get, your physical body gives you an alert that you're feeling hungry. There's a psychological connection that happens. Let's bring that routine in our psycho and soma. All right, so in that way, fix anything. Say for instance, it can be related to your physical health. Sometimes it can be your exercise that you can fix in, or the meditation, or sometimes you're good in yoga, you can fix it. 10 minutes for that. And for the psychological health, it can be reflection time. As I do it, every day before I go to sleep, 10 minutes before sleeping, definitely I will consciously desire, think about reflecting on morning, what I did, what I had, and know whom I spoke to. Did I hurt someone doing it, or someone hurt me? Why did this happen? What could I have avoided? Definitely, it's been, I'm practicing for more than 6 to 7 years. Even before self-care, I do it as part of before going to sleep, what all things has happened. So that, that can be, that really helps a lot. Say for instance, if you would have done it unconsciously, probably you can rectify it a day or so. If something that comes to your mind, which means you have not intentionally did that, reflection time is something that you can do it. And some 10 minutes for your social time. I'm sure everybody would have hours together for social time. Is that your personal social time? Say for instance, are you sharing something that you wanted to really convey to the people? Is that, it can be some DP post that you wanted to post it to your friends about something on suicidal, prevention awareness about suicide, something on COVID information that you want to share it, something that you wanted to contribute to the society, something that you think that will add value to people. Can you do that? That is, you can schedule that timing. And something called, maintaining your interpersonal relationship. Talk, can you talk to your family members? I'm sure, most of the people, when they, the biggest problem with them staying with the family, because they have never had this habit of spending with their family members. That is a huge trauma that youngsters, especially people, are facing it. They're happy in spending time with their friends, not with their families. Now that the things have changed, having a correct balance between work, family, and for the friends, have the timing for interpersonal relationship. Talk to with people. I will always say, in all the conversation, have these three golden words. Please, use the word please, thank you, and sorry. If these three things can be, if you want to ask any help, always use the word please, so that it will please people to help you. It's okay that you can do it. If you have did something, it's okay to ask the first person to ask sorry, and that can do. If somebody did that, it is very important to be grateful. Say thank you to them. So it can be a small thing that can add value to it. Okay, add that in your small communications wherever you do it. So this will help you to maintain your interpersonal relationships. Again, working with your colleagues, very important to use all these things. It can be your senior, it can be your junior, it can be your supervisor. It's very important to have these things, because my senior boss will say that, with the colleagues, you'll say that, Damon will have this that when she asked for help, nobody could say no, because we put it that in a way. It can be a smartness also, alright. But we should work in a way that, ask these words, please, sorry, and thank you, becomes, adds a lot of values to that. It's okay even if they are your student, or even if they are colleagues or in something. Use this word as a small tip to maintain a very strong interpersonal relationships. These are the small aspect. And in tomorrow, probably sir is going to more deep deal with that each dimensions. For physical dimensions, what to be done. For psychological dimensions, what to be done. So I'm not going to unwrap the session that what Sarah is going to do it. This is a simple tips that, because somebody asked me. And the bingo chat is also something that you do. And the wheel, the self-care wheel is something very interesting. You can have that self-care wheel for yourself. You can design it. This page can be edited. This is something that you can have it. You can choose in physical, you can choose two, in psychological two, and in emotional two, and in spiritual two. in personal too, and then professional too. You can choose any two of them, start practicing it. For somebody who doesn't, that's how I do it. Somebody who doesn't do it, take that and sometimes you can do your own rating, which is a self-care that you are giving to so much importance. Let's say for each one of them you can give 1 mark. How much is it for in safe housing, regular medical care, health, eat healthy, each for each one of them you can give 1 mark, and see which of the dimensions you're giving much importance, which you give zero importance. That's where you need to work out. You need to work out and think about it. When I did this, the physical care is something which I've given very, very least important. And 2 years before, now slowly we are all working on it. I'm still working on it. This is something that everybody can practice it, and which is easy.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I request you to give the closing remarks for the session.
I think I've spoken pretty much enough. To conclude this, as I said, self-care is very, very important aspect. We have been doing a lot. We have been practicing a lot. Are we consciously doing it? So that is one thing that I want to reinforce to the group. This is not like that. This is not just be a class that you have attended or session that you have attended. Please, I wanted it would be a real success if few people, at least a 10% of people who have been taken about it and start practicing it. You will definitely see results in your workplace. It is not only results for yourself, you're also doing a major contribution to the society and for the field of social work, or for in the field whichever you are in. So break this myth related to self-care. As mental health is for equally for everyone, it is very important. I think self-care is equally important. Start practicing it. You will today we are just giving this handouts and materials, scales on professional self-care scale. You can rate the scale, and if something is really wounding you to work on it, definitely work on it. Our contact numbers are there. Feel free to ask us and write us related to strategies related to it, and stay tuned with us in coming days, in all 6 days. And self-care is very important. It is not only for social workers, it is applicable for anybody else. Just because for any human is prone to have a crisis, it's okay to have a crisis, move on in life. Self-care is one of the important strategy that it needs to be. We have been practicing out only in recent days. We have been speaking about it. So which is so much in our culture, so much in our emotions, so much in our daily living. We have started talking about it. Let's not stop only by talking about it. Let's consciously practice about it. And this would be my closing remarks for it. And when clients come to us with so much of expectations, let's not disappoint them by not being taking care of ourselves. Let's take care of ourselves, being a sound mind person. So we need to have a spirit of sound mind. So it's important for us to search for a sound mind that comes from self-care, spirit of sound mind. So spirit of love and spirit of compassion is very, very important, and we should search where that comes from, and self-care gives that. And thank you so much for everyone.